Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our Enjin and Crypto.com live video AMA today. I'm Tina Baker-Taylor, and I'm the General Manager of the UK for Crypto.com, and I'm delighted to be your host for today's live stream. Today's prize pool has been increased to $2,000 to be paid in ENJ tokens. And to enter the random drawing today, please comment in the chat with your Crypto.com referral ID, and you'll be entered into a random prize drawing. NFTs have been around for a few years, but they've recently experienced a huge surge in interest. Receiving substantial mainstream press coverage lately, NFTs have been described as the next generation of value creation in sports and art. 3 years ago, the entire NFT market was around $42 million. By the end of 2020, it had grown more than 700% to around $330 million. But this year alone, we've seen more than 150,000 NFTs sold, almost quintuple the amount sold in all of 2020 in the first quarter of this year alone. So you can guess we're going to be talking about NFTs today, and I am delighted to be joined by the author of the ERC1155 token, an advanced token standard for NFTs, and the co-founder and CTO of Enjin, Witek Radomski. Hey, Witek.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
It's awesome to have you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's great.
So why don't you kick us off with an introduction of yourself, you're the CTO, and of Enjin. Who are you and what do you guys do?
Sure. So I'm the CTO of Enjin. Enjin's been around for about 12 years. We started off as a platform for gamers to build their own gaming social communities. And that grew into larger kind of clans, guilds, and Minecraft servers monetizing their communities. And we saw this happening, and in 2017, Ethereum was at the point where we saw we could create something bigger. We started investigating how game developers could use tools to use blockchain to basically give their users these sort of items and non-fungible tokens. And so we started building NFTs before anyone knew what NFTs were. Right. And we really became the first NFT platform in the world. And now we're really working on providing an end-to-end product ecosystem. So game developers can get started and really build out their token economies, put that into their games, and users can access that easily and play these games. So we want to make that vision possible.
That's awesome. So what you're building at Enjin, how does the Enjin coin fit into the ecosystem?
So Enjin coin was first conceived as a way to infuse value into a token. So let's say you're some kind of developer or influencer or game developer creating an NFT. Let's say you're a game that's making swords out of different materials, and you will have a really rare sword, like a golden sword that only has 10 copies available. You're actually able to infuse Enjin coin into the item. And now anyone who owns that item, it basically has something that already has some kind of value in it. And we did this because, we knew that these NFTs, they were a very new thing. People, especially when there's a new game coming out, people are going to pre-buy these items and they want to have some security that this is actually, there's something behind these items. So anyone can actually melt down an item if they want and take out the Enjin coin. But I think it's much more interesting to keep the item, have that backed value for security. And so that's what we initially use Enjin coin for. But now with these new announcements, there's going to be a lot more utility added to Enjin coin.
Okay, well, we're going to get there. So let's, so considering the gaming ecosystem, as you said, the rare, unique items within games, or enriched items like you're talking about have been around for a while. And now we've seen this huge explosion of, NFTs. So, considering that we're in a little bit of a hype cycle, I think that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not real, right? Are NFTs here to stay, or is it just hype? And if it and why, for whichever you believe?
Sure. So NFTs are finally kind of hitting the mainstream audience and the mainstream sort of mind. So everybody is seeing these celebrities and influencers and artists and musicians creating NFTs. These are the first sort of exploratory experimenters, and they're trying to use this to find new ways to monetize their media, their gamify their audiences and businesses. And of course, there's like a huge surge of interest in NFTs right now. But what we've been focused on at Enjin from the beginning is really why would someone want to own an NFT? I mean, there's a lot of value obviously in having a collectible item like the first tweet from Jack Dorsey, or some really rare something from a celebrity or big brand. But we want to actually have utility for these things. So things like unlocking access to something really exclusive in the real world or in the digital world, adding history to your NFTs, doing things like crafting items with them, using them in the new virtual world and metaverse that's really starting to expand here. So, in the future, we envision NFTs being your sort of digital identity and your digital property, and you can use them to do different things in the world.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that is really cool. And I think that does kind of answer the question around why. So some of these tweets, like you brought up Dorsey's tweet. So, let's talk about that for a second. I do wonder, I can see it anytime I want. It's still on Twitter. So, why would I want to own it? And, for the person that bought it, I'm sure they have their reasons. But it sounds like you're really focused on enriching that value within the actual collectibles themselves so that they have a purpose in addition to the collectability.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, I mean, let's say with Jack Dorsey's tweet, the beauty of blockchain is it's open, right? It's decentralized. You don't need to go through like a curated walled garden system just to access that. So anyone who owns that tweet can actually go and display it in some other platform. Let's say there's some sort of social environment where you can show off your cool collectibles. You can do that. We just need to continue building tools and interoperability. And that's really one of the key visions for Enjin, is to make everything interoperable, expose this information through APIs, through SDKs, so that people can actually interact with these tweets, with these collectibles, with the really interesting items that you get. But going further than that, we also want to give developers the tools to do more cool things with them. Like, you can hold something and own it, but what about being able to transform it, being able to combine it with other items, being able to unlock different things in a virtual world or game, or literally take it somewhere and scan a QR code and get access to some kind of event. So that's where the real power lies, I think. I think we lost Tiana.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there. That was a first for everything. So I was saying, you had a big announcement today, and you announced the Affinity blockchain with Polkadot, and with funding from our own Crypto.com Capital Fund. So let's talk a little bit about Affinity. You've described it as a multi-chain highway for NFTs. Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so Affinity is probably the biggest thing that Enjin has ever started building. We want to build a true inter-blockchain token standard and network to be able to utilize these NFTs. So right now, when you're using NFTs on something like Ethereum is a fantastic blockchain. It's a really good general computing platform. But with everybody competing for the resources on that blockchain, things get expensive, things get difficult to use. There's also a lot of friction points that users are experiencing. So, you have to have Ether, you have to have a wallet set up, you have to install different tools to use these things. And when we're talking about the mainstream audience, somebody just that wants to install a mobile game or log onto their PlayStation and start, being involved in these things, they don't want to do all that leg work and all that stuff. So
it's hard. There's a lot of steps.
It is, and that's, we've been talking to so many game developers, and that's one of their biggest, blockers. They want to use this stuff, but how are we going to get 1 million people on board when there's all these steps, and like no one's going to have the patience to do that. And there's so many issues with how easy it is to use these tokens. So even with ERC 1155, I mean, we tried to tackle this a bit in ERC 1155, but if you want to start interoperating with different smart contracts, there's all kinds of permission walls. You have to approve smart contracts because it's really a trustless system. Like you can't, one smart contract can't trust the other smart contract. So it has to have all these walls and permissions in there. What we can do with Affinity is we can build a native network for these NFTs. So you can do all kinds of operations, trading, crafting, all these kind of things without a lot of unnecessary, extraneous transactions. And we are building this on Polkadot. So this really lets us hyper optimize both the economy and the protocol so that it's actually usable for these mass use cases. So people running around in games, picking up items, trading them really fast. That's really what we want to achieve.
So let's dig into that decision to build on Polkadot. We've kind of, alluded to the cost and, congestion on Ethereum. Was that the only reason why, or does Polkadot offer additional benefits that Affinity was able to take advantage of?
Yeah, there's so many things we can do. I think this really will unlock so many possibilities. The beauty of Polkadot is that it is built with a platform called Substrate, and that's built in the language called Rust. So there's a ton of Rust developers out there that know the language. They can start building smart contracts and start extending what they can do with their tokens immediately. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that they're building a cross-chain ecosystem. So when I say cross-chain, there's going to be a lot of parachains that do different things, purpose-built blockchains. And each blockchain is designed for its use case. It has its own protocols, its own code that does its thing. And you can move tokens in between all of these parachains. We're also going to let people move tokens to other blockchains. So people that have built on our Ethereum platform and any other tokens like CryptoKitties or anything on Ethereum can move seamlessly onto Affinity and then have all these advantages of speed, really cheap operation. And actually, let me get into some of the features a little bit. I mean, yeah. So firstly, one of the big blockers for like a big company or game developer bringing their users on is the cost, right? Like people don't want to put money up front just to be able to play their game. So the game developers or enterprises are going to be able to subsidize the transactions for their users. We have this concept called fuel tanks, where they can load up a fuel tank, they can stake their EFI tokens inside the fuel tank, and then that fuel tank will cover the transaction costs for their users, whether that's for their whole collection of tokens or for their subscribers. They can configure that fuel tank to do that. We also let game developers create accounts for their users. So they can create 100,000 accounts. They can tie those to a user account, and now a user doesn't need a blockchain wallet right up front. If they want to claim that wallet, they can go in and claim it, and that wallet then becomes owned by that user's private key. So we have this easy onboarding system now. And in terms of more features, like, we can do so much. I mean, the biggest one, in my opinion, is the marketplace system that we're building. Now, when you look at existing marketplaces right now, they're kind of like, these websites. You go on an NFT marketplace, you list your item for sale, you kind of wait for buyers to come along. What we're doing with Affinity is the marketplace is going to be an integral part of the core blockchain. So you can actually place bids on any token. It can be a token that exists on Affinity. It can be a token on Ethereum. You can place a bid. What do you think it's worth? I want to pay 200 for this token. Now, all the sellers that own this kind of token, you can I said a token, like it can be a single NFT that you bid on, or it could actually be a collection. So if you want one of the 100 NFTs that are these iron swords or something in a game, you can bid on one of those, and then you have these 100 sellers available to sell you that token. As a seller, you can also put an ask order on the chain. And we think that this mechanism will create natural price discovery for NFTs. And this hasn't ever been done before. So like literally, people will be putting bids on any items they want to get. Sellers will be putting orders in for what they want to sell their items in. And then these prices will sort of come closer to the actual market value of an NFT. What this now creates is we have a mechanism for bringing in liquidity from other chains. For people who have a token on Ethereum can see some bids available for their kind of token on Affinity, come in, fill those orders, and now we have another user on Affinity. And in the end, I think this will allow seamless trading and transactions between any fungible currency and any NFT. So if a game developer wants to sell something for USDC or USDT, they can list their token in that price. Somebody could bring in anything else, like they can bring in Enjin coin, they can pay for it in Enjin coin. It'll automatically be swapped to the price based on what the market prices are of these tokens. And I think that'll really make things seamless for the community.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, the NFT space has been facing some criticism around, usability. We've talked about that, environmental impact, the stress on the planet, and the fragmentation piece, right? So you've got this platform, the tokens can't move off of that. You've got that platform, you can only pay with Ethereum. And so you're kind of ending up with these camps all over the place. And to me, it feels like if these tokens are actually going to achieve their true value and be truly tradable on a secondary market, that price discovery is really important, but also the ability to move them around. And it sounds like that's what you're talking about being in the position to now solve for.
Yeah, so the interoperability component is huge because this is really going to be a component of people's digital lives. And so we want people to know that they can own these tokens whatever chain they're on. There's going to be uses for the tokens on Ethereum. There's going to be uses for the tokens on JumpNet, and on Affinity as well. So you can actually seamlessly move them anywhere you want. And yeah, we think that that's going to be a huge thing in the future.
Okay, so we know what kind of NFTs look like today, and how they're being traded and launched, dropped, if you will, and then sometimes I wonder if there's kind of a glut sitting there later. What are some of the next gen attributes that you think that Affinity will be able to enable? So maybe not what it does today, but what are you looking to, have on the roadmap? What's your vision for the platform?
Yeah, I mean, our initial phases of development are going to be getting the core bridges working, the core token standard. We're developing a pair token standard that enables this cross-chain mechanism. And then we're going to move into some more interesting features. One of the core features is obviously native multi-sig on any transaction. We don't want you to have to launch a smart contract, multi-sig wallet. You can have 3 or 4, 10 signers on a transaction. And with more complex apps, you can then do things like if you have a game developer that wants to pay the transaction fees for their users, they can set up a bot with a wallet, and that bot will determine which transactions it can sign. Now, some really cool features, the fun ones, are, for example, crafting. We want to build this system called crafting that exists directly on the chain, but you can sign off-chain messages that are called recipes. So a game developer or a business that wants to, let's say, gamify their tokens, maybe if you have 5 of their tokens, they can combine them into a super token. That's one kind of crafting you can do. Right. They can create a message completely off-chain that says, we want to perform this sort of thing. We want to burn these 5 tokens. We want to mint a new super token. And then they sign it with their wallet. Now, they can distribute it completely outside of the blockchain. It doesn't clog up the blockchain at all. and users can then deploy it onto the blockchain and perform that crafting recipe. The blockchain will check whether they have those 5 needed tokens, and it'll craft the new token for them. It'll burn their old tokens. So that's a really powerful system, and we've really thought this through. We've talked to so many game developers that want to use this feature, and enterprises that want to do this as well. Microsoft, for example, is really interested in using this feature. So that's one of the really fun features we could do with this.
Well, I have a non-gamer question. Well, first, I have another question. So you talked earlier about melting a token, and you just said burn. Is that the same thing?
They're 2 different things. So burning basically means you send your token to a black hole, and you null it. So nobody can ever transfer that token again. Melting means you literally remove the ownership of that token from somebody. That token ceases to exist, but it unlocks the Enjin coin inside of it. So it's a little bit different, where that token gets removed from the circulating supply when you melt it. Then the game developer or business can melt another version of that again.
Got it.
Or sorry, mint another version. So let's say there's 100, somebody melts one, they can then go ahead and mint a new one.
Okay, so going back to the analogy you just gave around, I have 10 swords, I want to make a super sword. I do the negotiation off chain, come back, mint my super sword. How does that work within the game? Are there categories already around things that you could potentially create, or is this an ability for people to create things that didn't exist in the game before?
Yeah, this is a full solution for developers to dream up their own crafting systems. So, whether it's Microsoft combining, 5 badgers into like a super badger token, or whether it's a game that has thousands of different recipes available that you need, a hammer and anvil, that those don't get burned, but you need some supplies that will get burned. Some supplies get melted, some tokens get minted, something gets transferred to maybe the blacksmith, so that you can do any kind of operation with these tokens as part of these recipes. And that's why anyone can get creative, say, I want my tokens to behave this way, bake that into a recipe, distribute it out. It's quite powerful, because they can even off-chain, they can even disable the recipes before somebody has executed them. So it's going to be a nice feature, but that's coming a little bit later after the core functionality is done.
Well, that's a whole new kind of level of gaming, isn't it? Where you're now, really kind of in control. Some of these platform games, you get to make choices, right? But this is entirely different. You're almost co-creating things in real time.
Yeah, and we wanted to build this as a core part of Affinity instead of being like something that someone implements as a smart contract, because we want this system to be recognized by wallets, by user interfaces, by games themselves, that they'll be able to easily see what happens when they perform these crafting operations.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned I'm going to say it wrong, the EFI token,
EFI, yeah.
EFI, thank you, EFI. So you currently have the ENJ token. You've created the new EFI token. How does the new token impact the existing Enjin coin holder? Are there benefits? Are there drawbacks? And what are the 2 tokens' purposes within the platform?
Yeah, we were very careful in designing this. We felt there was a real strong need for a new token, because we're creating a brand new ecosystem and economy. For Affinity to work, we need these transactions to be scalable. We need the economy to work hand in hand, all parts of the economy. So with Polkadot and parachains, we are not restricted by miners. It's a completely different system than Ethereum, where miners are processing all these transactions, doing all this heavy lifting in terms of the mining that they're doing. With Polkadot, there's a thing called a relay chain, and that handles security and validation. And each parachain just synchronizes with the relay chain. So, and Affinity is going to be a parachain, and it can develop its own economy. So the point of the economy is all people, like people that actually input value into the network, whether they're using NFTs, whether they're performing price discovery, whether they are just nominating nodes by using their Enjin coin on the side. They're all going to be providing value for NFT usage, not for random smart contract DeFi stuff that's happening outside of the NFT space.
Right.
So ENJ, it was always deemed as a sort of infusion token to infuse value into your NFTs. But we're also giving it the ability to stake and nominate collator nodes. So anyone with an Enjin wallet can click stake, and their Enjin coin will then start generating them passive revenue from the chain. And they're also performing a service by nominating those nodes. The nodes with the highest votes will actually be the active collators on the system. Now, we're also going to backport some features into Ethereum from this chain. But let me talk about EFI a little bit. The core utility of EFI is paying transaction fees on the network. They're going to be orders of magnitude smaller, but we still need transaction fees to prevent spam. There's going to be various ways to stake EFI inside the network to do things like get discounts on transaction fees. If you're a big game developer, you want to stake that, create large amounts of accounts on chain. We're giving it power to govern. So it's a little bit different than on Ethereum. In this case, the community will vote on proposals that they'll literally see in their wallet a governance proposal, like we want to do this upgrade to the chain. They'll have a number of weeks, they can review that proposal and they can vote. Essentially that upgrade will happen on the chain. If they want to, the community wants to change some fees, they want to discuss this online, they'll use the EFI token to be part of this governance system. Now we're also going to add one more interesting feature. It is actually the ability to participate in NFT airdrops. So when you stake your EFI, you will actually be able to get curated airdrops. The more you stake, the more you'll be eligible for in terms of these airdrops. Cool. There's a lot more utility. If you go over our white paper, you can see what the EFI token is being used for. It's if you're performing these price discovery services by bidding on tokens, bidding in the marketplace on chain, you'll actually be incentivized to be the highest bidder. So you place the highest bid on an epic battle axe. Now you're going to be receiving some passive income from doing that. So yeah, I mean, one other last thing I'll mention is the swap system. It's called Affinity Swap. Once we build up this on-chain marketplace with all these bid orders and ask orders, you can actually instantly swap any token. So let's say you take ENJ, you can buy something that's listed in EFI. If you take USDT, you can also buy something that's listed in EFI. If you bring in wrapped Ether or wrapped Bitcoin onto the chain, you can buy those same items. So it'll automatically swap in the background using liquidity that's there.
Nice. Yeah, that is super helpful. Super helpful. When you get to making a transaction final, and then you realize, damn, gas prices have gone up. I don't have enough ETH. I have to go, back to where I came from and go get more. It's really frustrating. So that's a nice feature for sure. Witek, it's been such a pleasure to speak to you. There are so many more questions that I have, and I know the community has more questions. We decided we were going to do kind of half and half video AMA today, and do a live Q&A on Clubhouse, which we are going to jump over to in a moment, and Caleb's going to join us, so that's awesome. So if you're watching and you want to ask Caleb or Witek direct questions about the token, about Affinity, about the new platform, Polkadot, all the things we've talked about today, then join us on Clubhouse, and you should see the link in the comment section now. Witek, do you have any parting words for us before we jump over? It's not goodbye. It's just a pause until we jump on the other channel. But any closing words?
Yeah, sure. I'm really interested to hear the questions from the community. I see this as really the new era where NFTs are gaining, widespread adoption, and I think the next decade we're going to see a huge change in society where these are used in so many creative ways, and I just can't wait to be part of that.
It's awesome. Well, for anyone who can't join us on Clubhouse, you can follow Witek on Twitter at, I think we'll show it up on the screen, but it's WITEK and Enjin at Enjin. A reminder, if you want to enter today's prize pool before we go, please enter your Crypto.com referral ID into the comment section in YouTube, and you'll be entered into the prize pool. The names will be drawn at random, and we will let you know within 14 days, and the ENJ tokens will be deposited into your wallet app. So to follow us on Crypto.com on Twitter to stay up to date about our upcoming events, and keep an eye on our official Telegram channels and our YouTube channel as we release new news with new partners all the time. So Witek, are you ready to jump over to Clubhouse?
Let's do it.
All right, great. So hopefully we'll see you all over there, and look forward to joining Caleb Applegate. Your Chief Operating Officer is going to come on with us.
Awesome. See you soon.
Cool. See you in a minute. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.